We are doing a live show, Boston Marathon Weekend, April 19th, 5:30 p.m., the Trident Cafe and Booksellers on Newbury Street. That's in like 10 days, Caitlin?
Yeah, just a little over a week. We'll be there. Thanks for, I know why you're saying that to me. I'm nervous.
Caitlin is running the Boston Marathon, but before she runs down Boylston Street, victorious, we are going to be on stage live doing yet another live show, our second ever live show. Super excited about it. There are a limited number of tickets still available. You've got to RSVP to let us know that you're coming. There's like really only, I think, a handful of tickets left. We're pretty much sold out, which is totally amazing. We're going to have some special guests. We're going to do some giveaways, some special exclusive Boston weekend swag from us. And there'll be free food and drinks as well. And it should be a really awesome time. And I've already seen the guest list. I've already seen who's RSVP'd. And there's some special guests that are going to be in the audience. So
awesome.
There's a world record holder. Can I say that? There's a world record holder who's signed up.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
I don't want to say who. You got to keep a bit of the intrigue, right?
There will be a Boston Marathon winner and a world record holder for sure.
And these are that's not the same person. We're talking about two different people.
Mm-hmm. So April 19th, it's on the Saturday, nice and clear of Monday, which is race day. So you can come check us out, 5:30 p.m. on Newbury Street, Trident Booksellers and Cafe. Great venue, really awesome little venue we've got set up there, but only a few tickets available. We will put a link in the show notes for you to get your ticket to RSVP for it. I would do so as soon as you hear this so that you've got an opportunity to come by if you're in Boston. And if you know somebody who's going to be in Boston, share this with them so that they can come check us out. All right, let's get into the show. This is the Marathon Handbook Podcast, and I am joined today by my pair of Carrie Bradshaws, Caitlin Tossey and Alex Sear. Who does that make me? Does that make me? Am I so a Samantha? Am I more a Charlotte?
Everyone knows you're Miranda. Also, there could only be one Carrie Bradshaw. Come on.
Yeah, we've got to switch it up. But since I've never seen it, I don't know. And it's you.
For those who have not watched a show that has not been on there. Oh, actually, I guess they did a remake of it or like a reboot of it a couple of years ago. Sex and the City. The main character is, of course, an advice columnist of sort. So today we are going to be bestowing our wisdom. We're doing a mailbag episode. We've gathered together all of your questions over the last couple of months. We like to do one of these, let's say quarterly. We're sort of getting into a quarterly routine here with the mailbag. And we got a lot of questions actually through all of our various channels. YouTube, Spotify now allows questions and comments, as well as emails directly to us. You can email us at hi@marathonhandbook.com if you've got any questions at any point, or just post a question or comment on our YouTube channel as well, or on Spotify. So are you guys ready? Are you ready to dole out your pearls of wisdom?
I'm ready.
Yeah.
Ready.
We're going to break this down into three different categories, I'd say. We're going to talk training. We're going to talk gear and shoes. We'll let Mr. Sear steer the bus on that one. Lots of gear and shoe questions. And then a third category, which the Jeopardy category, the Potpourri category, the grab bag. So, all right. Before we get into this, got a little tease for you guys.
Oh.
I was in Atlanta for like 30 hours. And I just got back this morning. We're recording this on Wednesday afternoon. The pod goes out on Thursday mornings. So I was there for a brief period of time for a secret mission with a couple of our colleagues. And all I can say about it is that there's a video that's going to drop mid next week, just before the Boston Marathon, that I think has the greatest piece of advice on how to run that damned Boston Marathon course that I've ever heard from anybody. And it's from one Mr. Amby Burfoot, 1968 winner of the Boston Marathon, and a guy who I discovered yesterday has run that race 28 or 29 times. He's lost count. That's how many times he's run the Boston Marathon.
I need that
So,
advice.
No,
you need that advice.
It takes this person to impart advice on Michael about the Boston Marathon, because you're already so convinced, I think, that you know how to run that course.
Hey, now. I am a student of the sport, and I am a student of the Boston Marathon, and I am fascinated by it. And it is a unique experience running that race because, and don't want to freak you out, Caitlin, because I know you're running it in like 10 days time. It is uniquely challenging. It really is probably the trickiest course to get right. And Ambi gives a really incredible piece of advice in this video that we're going to drop on our YouTube channel in the days leading up to the marathon, which I'm really excited to see it. We traveled a long way to make this video, so it'll be super exciting. So there's the little
the teaser,
little Easter egg, little teaser, little breadcrumbs that I've scattered here for you to. So if you don't subscribe to the YouTube channel, do so that you'll find out what that incredible advice is. And while I was in Atlanta, I was staying in a rather tony sort of like residential area north of the city, very hilly. Didn't know where the heck I was. I was only there for essentially one day. And our video editor, Kosuke, and I went and explored the hilly, tony, it's like kind of a suburb almost of Atlanta, and ran around, got a nice 14K run in. And we went in search of a track, which I have a question for you both. Have you ever gone for kind of an exploratory run while traveling and just happened upon like kind of like a little Shangri-La of running, be it like a track or a trail or just a loop that you discovered that like you'll never forget and maybe you'll never get back to, but it was like a special moment?
Yes, I have one. I have one, but I can't say that I just discovered it. I sought it out because last year I was in Nashville for a conference for 5 days. And we were in the middle of Nashville, and it dawned on me on the first day that the only place where I could run, because I was in this big conference center, the only place I could run outside was like around this nearby shopping mall. And it was an American shopping mall. It's a massive shopping mall. It took like 2 miles to circumvent the whole thing.
Whoa.
And so I had a new pair of Hoka Skyflows. I remember I was reviewing the shoes. So I just put on this pair of shoes and ran around the mall. And after 3 days of running around the mall, I was so sick of it. And I found a runner at this conference. It was not even a running conference. And she told me the one place where people from Nashville run. And it was at this park on the whole other side of the city. And you had to Uber there. It was incredibly inconvenient. But the cool thing was that when I actually got there, I took the Uber, I made it there. And it was like this nice, lush park that was like a 3-mile loop. There were deer all over the place, but they didn't mind you. So I was kind of freaked out at first. But I just did the best workout. And I was like, the coolest part, sometimes the nicest runs come when you least expect them and when you struggle through completely shitty runs for a few days before that.
No, I have something so similar, Alex. It was last year. I was in Massachusetts because we had just run the White Mountains Marathon up in New Hampshire. So I was staying in Natick, and it was after, was it before or after? It was after the marathon. We were going to do a little touring around Boston. I wanted to show some of my friends where I'm from. And so we were staying at this house in Natick, and literally, I had no idea, literally 50 meters, not even a block away from the house where we were staying, there was this entrance to a trail, and we just jumped on it. It was like a recovery walk run a few days after the marathon, and it just went on and on and on and on, this like beautiful, pretty flat, well taken care of trail just in the middle of nowhere in Natick. And cross streets.
You never heard of the famous Natick Trail, Caitlin? Where have you been all these years?
Exactly. Like, you're probably right. It actually probably has a name, but it was just this trailhead. in a cul-de-sac at the end of a street in this little neighborhood, and it was amazing. So it was a great surprise, and I ran on it every single day. I was like, I really wish there was a nice trail like this near my house where I could just step out and go as far as I wanted to go because it just seemed like it went on and on and on and on. So it was a really nice surprise.
Yeah, Koska and I ran, it was about like 3 or 4K to get to, he wanted to check out this track. It was like a middle school track. And once we got there, it was like nestled in a ravine. It was that orange, Mondo surface track. It was, I think, 7 or 8 lanes. It was perfectly manicured. Somebody
Wow.
had clearly set up benches at lane 4, so you could like put your bottles there and grab bottles. It was just a couple of other guys doing a workout, and then a guy and presumably his son and their little dog playing in the field. And it was like perfect, like, the twilight hour, the magic hour. The light was incredible. I just cruised around this track while Koske threw down this like sprint cut down workout because he's a 400-meter guy. So he did 200, 150, 150 with like max rest in between and was just flying. And I was just kind of jogging along the entire time. But it was like kind of one of these special nights that I won't forget. So,
Oh, that's so nice.
yeah. I love that about running. And I love like when you just find this kind of magical place. It's like a little moment in time that you'll never forget.
A little treasure.
So, a little treasure. All right, guys, you ready to reach into the mailbag? Start
ready.
Answering questions. Okay. So we're going to start with the training questions. Very first one is about marathon training and confusion around how to approach that. So SL Dorse 42 on YouTube asks us, they are presumably a recreational marathon runner. We don't know how much experience they have with the marathon, but they have this question, which is, I've seen 2 different ways to approach a marathon training plan. Either you build up your base to high mileage and then you just add intensity through intervals and long runs, but the mileage stays about the same besides down weeks. Then the other way is building base to about 80% of the peak week, and then you add intensity and mileage each week until that peak timing. Which do you think is better for continued growth? I was reading that most pro runners build the base a lot higher before adding intensity. I did not know if you had any thoughts on that method for non-elites, presumably this listener/viewer. All right. Coach Tossie, we'll
Yes,
turn
sir.
to you first here. I think probably to unpack that a little bit further, there seems to be sort of this like confusion in the listener about what is the best course of action for them so that they continue to get better.
Okay. Well, let's take a look. It's going to, of course, depend on your experience as a runner. So I have a specific method that I use depending on if you're a beginner and this is your first marathon or if you're an experienced runner. So for a beginner, I would really focus just on that base mileage, right, for the most part, because it's mileage that you haven't run before and you want to really focus on that and not worry so much about speed, not worry about pace, not worry about time, right? So we're working on just increasing your endurance and getting that mileage up there for the marathon. Now, when we're thinking about more of an experienced runner, things can get a lot more complicated. So you can get better at so many different aspects of running, right? So what I do when I put together a marathon training plan for someone who is more experienced or have run a couple marathons before is we begin with the base, or if the base is already worked up from years and years of training, then we can jump right into the speed part. But you of course have to have your base. Now, when we begin the macro cycle for the marathon, what I do is I like to start with the least specific training. And then as we get closer to the marathon, the training gets more specific, right? So that's the way I work. So what does that mean? The least specific training for a marathon is going to be short intervals, but short intervals help us because they help us with our speed and our power, and we want to get faster. So I would do the first block with short speed intervals, and then I would go work more into long threshold intervals that are on the shorter side, and then tempo runs, which is on the longer side, right? And then work into marathon pace and threshold pace, and just get as specific as possible for the marathon. So what I'm trying to say is not only would I add intensity from the beginning, but I would also gradually increase the volume as I went. So we would see kind of like an increase in both of those things, but the intensity would change, right, based on the cycle that I'm in. So whether that would be speed at the beginning, threshold, tempo, or marathon pace. Okay, so that's the way I look at it, and I hope that that's clear as to kind of how I would set up a marathon training plan for an experienced runner, not an elite runner.
Mr. Sear, does that check out for you as well?
I mean, listen, Caitlin seamlessly fit the word macro cycle in her answer. I'm not going to try to top that. What I want to add,
Fancy.
and I think is important to add, is I see in Mr. SL Dors's answer, I see the words continued growth. Continued growth. Okay, for continued growth, you need a good base. And the best base is a base that you carry from season to season.
Yep.
And so I think the big picture thing to keep in mind when you're doing that and when you're going into those last few weeks is, you're working to get that last 5 to 10% of your fitness, like to get that extra last minute off your marathon time. Don't sweat too much about the training that you're putting in and like worry that you didn't put in, one extra session of intensity in the third week before your marathon. Make sure you finish the season healthy and come back. And I think that's the main ingredient in continued growth. This is a great question because like you want to get that last 10%. Like why not try to show up at the race 100% ready? But I think at the underlying level, try to make it healthy and then go at it again next year or next season. And then you can entertain those like secondary questions, right?
Yeah. If you're a somewhat experienced runner, or even you've maybe done a couple of marathons and you're now starting to think along these lines, you're starting to think in terms of program, in terms of structure to your running, in terms of being like very deliberate with what you're doing every day and every week. Definitely look into the fancy term that Caitlin used, macro cycle, mesocycles, which are the few blocks of training within your macro cycle of training for a marathon, the entire build. And really kind of I fully recommend trying to become a student of the sport as a runner and nerd out on it if it's your thing. And we've got a lot of resources obviously on our site, and you can ping us for more specific questions in the future for sure. But yeah, peaks and valleys to your training. It's not just a straight trajectory up on a graph.
Of course.
You need to take up weeks, down weeks, and then weeks in between as you climb up to the peak, and then the sort of the peak within the mesocycle, a little block within your bigger training block, and that has to all have a purpose as well, right? So often elite runners, non-elite runners alike, I think in the first sort of phase of your base building, doing lighter workouts, shorter, faster stuff, even just strides once a week, 10, 15 strides once a week, like little 80, 100-meter sprints, really great for you. Hill sprints, really great for you. A shorter, punchier fartlek workout based on time, like 30 seconds on, 30 seconds easy, 30 seconds off, a minute on, a minute off, that sort of thing. Sort of bread and butter stuff to get you kind of like back into the swing of things and get you to that second phase of your marathon build healthy, right? So there's a danger in trying to do too much too soon, both in terms of like intensity and volume, usually leads to like just being injured like 4 weeks in, right? And that will scuttle your dreams. All right, let's move on to the next one.
All right.
So this one is about, we've discussed zone 2 training in the past. We've taken on zone 2 training when we did our like trends and fads episode a couple months back now. And there's some confusion here about zone 2 upper limit and figuring out your zones. So Alex Turton, TO3VO asks, and he's specifically asking our colleague Brady here because Brady did a great video on whether or not zone 2 is the be all end all. but we're going to take it on here. Talks about your zone 2 upper limit being a large percentage of his max because he's more trained. But is this something that watches can do for you, or do they just work for your max heart rate and create a standard threshold for each band below? In other words, how do we establish our zone 2 threshold, or zone 2's, what our zone 2, let's call it for lack of a better term, short of going to a lab, if we think that we are decently trained? Mr. Sear, what's your thoughts on this? Like, how do we figure out? It's a great question. Like, especially if we don't trust our watch. Is our watch trustworthy? Should I trust my watch?
Yeah, I'm glad someone asked the question, because it's a question that I receive in person a whole lot. Like, I had a friend who was purposely slowing down their runs, like to a shuffle, because they wanted to stay in zone 2. So like,
Yeah.
I recognize we're in this like weird zone 2 craze right now. It's not a new concept, but it seems to be popular for whatever reason. So like, how do you know you're in zone 2? Should you trust your watch? I talked to a physiologist about this actually, and he's not all that bullish on watches when it comes to heart rate calculating, not only what your heart rate is in the moment. He says chest straps are a whole lot more accurate, but also like whether or not that's actually at your individual zone 2. That's asking a lot for a watch, because it's like, it has to keep in mind what your heart rate is and what your max heart rate is. And I don't think every piece of tech can do that. So this physiologist, I won't name him here because I didn't tell him that I was interviewing him for this podcast, but he's a prominent, well-known physiologist in the Canadian running world, said that a better way to think about zone 2 when you're running is to think of it as a rate of perceived exertion. So basically, from 0 to 10, how hard is it? And if you say you're in 3 to 5, so you can run, you can speak, but it would be hard to hold a real conversation, then you're probably in the right zone. And I think that's probably a better strategy than to like keep looking at your watch and have it tell you that you're in zone 2, because there you can really run into trouble. Now, as an example, my watch tells me that every single one of my runs is a threshold run. And either I'm way less fit than I think I am, or the watch is wrong. And so I think there's a lot of error inside of that. So I think be careful.
And so, of course, Alex is like, the watch has to be wrong, right?
Obviously.
I hope so. If not, I have the hardest training schedule of anyone in the world.
I mean, I run with my running best pal has a heart rate that is, we have the exact same watch, and he has a heart rate that sits about 10 points higher than mine. It's just, and he's a slightly better runner than I am. So, you know, it's a very subjective variable, and it's something that I think that once you become a more experienced runner, you get a really good sense of where your kind of like your heart rate zones or your workout zones are as well. Like easy run, steady state, kind of like low lactate threshold, a more like core lactate threshold that's at a higher end, and then VO2 max, and then 15 seconds you're going to collapse pace. So yeah, I think that covers it off pretty well. Okay, so next one is an email from Adam Moxon Carter. Sorry, Adam, if I've pronounced your last name incorrectly.
I think Carter's
an email
correct.
I think Moxon Carter. We got this email 8 or 9 days ago, and I promise you, Adam, I'm going to actually email you and provide you more detailed information here, but we'll cover it off in broad strokes for everyone who's listening. I'm going to start, he writes, I'm going to start helping with my daughter's elementary school running club. Curious what tips Michael has for keeping it fun and motivating while also teaching them something along the way. Thanks. Okay, so longtime listeners of the pod will know that I coach my kids' elementary school track and cross country teams. And I would say coaching small children, elementary school age kids, is a very specific subcategory of coaching, obviously very different than dealing with adults, and something that I've really kind of had to study and wrap my head around in the last few years of volunteering as a coach. And I would say, first things first, you've got to embrace and program for the fact that each individual kid needs to feel like they're a part of something and that it's a learning experience for them and that it's something exciting for them to do. And, like, I think the age old thing was that like running was punishment, right? And thankfully, I feel like our culture is moving away from that mentality lately. And you're given this incredible opportunity working with kids, like, show them that running can be fun and that they're able to master something that at times is hard and challenging, and that that's a fun thing to do. Doing hard things is fun. And so my approach has been with each kid to find a goal for them to set for themselves. And that can be as simple as like we do popsicle sticks. Like we have volunteer parents come out and stand at a certain point on the course and they hand out a popsicle stick for every lap, and you set goals as simple as that. It might be a more performance-based goal if the kid is a little bit older and they want to like compete at a track meet and they want to run a certain distance and they want to focus on that, and that's great. But then even within that, you have to be very aware that competition and being competitive, while it can be fun, you have to be very careful with it with a kid, right? You're looking for, as we talk about with adults, Caitlin, intrinsic, not extrinsic
Right.
goals, right?
Okay.
The outside, the medal, winning, the podium, you kind of almost, it's valueless to talk to a child about that stuff. And I think it's actually borderline dangerous to talk about that stuff with a kid. It's more about like, what's your goals going in, and how are we going to be successful with the race? How are we going to be successful with your training? And that's like a huge life lesson that you can impart on a child, is like basically kind of like going from nothing to something and figuring things out. It's sort of what life is all about, right? Another thing we do that I think is really important is we do the same, or a version of the same warm up before every single run. So we have 2 to 3 practices a week, and we get the grade 6 kids, because grade 6 is the oldest grade in my kids' school. Get the grade 6 kids to lead the workout, to lead the warm up, and we just do a little active, like dynamic stretching warm up. The A's and the B's and the C's and all that stuff to get them warmed up. And I've come to realize that becomes this really powerful thing you can carry on your entire life. I've now seen kids that like are in middle school and high school now that I've coached when they were in elementary school. And they're like, I still do that exact warm up before my cross country city finals race. And it grounds me, and it sort of like kind of reassures me that I'm like doing things right. And I think that that's a really valuable thing you can impart in kids. And there's like a million other things I can go through right now. Get parents involved, allow the younger kids to come out and run with the older kids as long as a parent is there. Because like kids in like kindergarten and grade 1 sometimes have a difficult time staying focused on running laps of a track or whatever. So
I can see that.
yeah, so we get the parents involved, which is great. And they can sort of like, they can start early, and it doesn't seem like a daunting thing later on for them. Okay. So Adam, I will write you
More to come.
small training manual via email in the coming days. But a great question, and a fascinating topic. Okay. Next up.
All right.
Why does my heart rate spike at the beginning of a run and then level out after the first 10 minutes? Is this a watch issue? The band too tight? So on and so forth.
I got this one the other day. Yeah, I got this one the other day from one of my athletes. They sent this to me. I'll take it. They sent this to me, and we started going through their runs on Training Peaks, and it was very funny because it was like this little blip at the beginning, and then went back down. But I remembered. I mean, this happens to me all the time. It used to happen to me all the time when I started a race. So I would start a race, a trail race. It would usually be pretty long, so it wasn't something that would be so intense, right? You would probably think, okay, I'm going to run 50 miles, so I've got to start out at a pretty even pace because it's going to be a really long race. So what I would do is I would start out all of these races, and the same exact thing would happen to me. My heart rate would be super high. And then after about 5 kilometers, it would start to even out, and then it would level out for the rest of the race. So in that case, what I realized is that I wasn't warming up enough, right? So this is one thing, because You're jumping in your sympathetic, what is it? Your sympathetic nervous system activation, right? You've got to make sure that you warm up your body sufficiently beforehand, because you're going from 0 to 60 and just beginning to run. So I feel like a heart rate spike at the beginning could be from a lack of a really good warm up before you get going. So that's something that you could try out. If it's a watch issue, I did a deep dive. I studied, I went onto a bunch of sites. I also spoke to a cardiologist. So I have a ton of different reasons or possibilities as to why this could happen. But that one kind of seems like the most common. Like you're jumping into something, you're jumping into an activity, and so then your body begins to level off and your heart rate begins to normalize. If you're, check your watch, make sure that that the band is nice and tight. Also, the skin needs to be a bit like wet. If you start to sweat, it's going to work better than if it's on dry skin. And as Alex mentioned, the best thing to use would be a chest strap. You'll probably get a more precise reading with a chest strap than if you're using one around your wrist. And so these are the things that I found were the most common. Now, you could take, a step further and say there could be, metabolical factors such as, hormone imbalances, thyroid related stuff, but that's getting really serious. And this is what the cardiologist told me. If you see a lot of issues and and this continues and the warm up doesn't work and a lot of things don't work and it starts to stress you out, then of course it's always a great idea to maybe get checked out. You could take a stress test, go see your healthcare providers, just make sure it's nothing out of the ordinary. But when it's something out of the ordinary, I would say tighten up that watch strap, get a nice warm up in before your workout, and see if it ends up leveling out. I don't know if this has happened to you guys before, or is something you've seen.
This is something that I experience like often. Certainly if I'm running a race, I experience it for sure. Yep. I don't know about you, Alex, but like especially for like a 5 or a 10K, I need to warm up for at least that distance before I'm ready to roll. I can't just jump into a hard 5K. It just kills me. Right. And if I'm doing a workout, I really need to warm up. And 5 to 6K, just like you, Caitlin, like 5 or 6K before my heart I feel things start to kind of self-regulate. And I think that's just how the body works, right?
Right.
It's like,
I think so.
It takes a while for the engine to warm up.
Exactly.
Yeah, I now have this thing where I've realized that the shorter the race I do, the longer the warm-up I need, which is really weird. Because the 5K you're going super intensely. If you're running a marathon, you're not hurting off the start. So you can use the race as a warm-up a little bit. You're still running at race pace, but it takes a while to start hurting. So yeah, for a recent 5K, I warm up 5K, then I race the 5K. It takes that long.
Now, I see that we've also got a question that's like very similar, which is, why does my heart rate continue to rise throughout a workout, even if I'm running at the same pace or effort the entire time?
The famous cardiac drift.
Not to be confused with the third installment of the Fast and Furious series, Tokyo Drift.
Tokyo Drift.
Fast and Furious cardiac drift. Yeah, I think this is like, it's a bit of a physiological phenomenon that you shouldn't be super worried about. I would offer that if it's like an easier run, maybe you're running a little bit too hard. Take it, run easier. I don't know. But apart from that, I don't think it's anything you need to freak out about. Next one. Training on a treadmill versus always running outdoors. Do you think it may in some ways be optimal to do so? So what's your opinion, guys? What's your thoughts on training on a treadmill versus always outdoors?
You go first, Alex.
Okay, so this winter challenged me more than any other winters when it came to deciding whether I should go outside or be on the treadmill, because the winter in Canada was particularly brutal. And I came up with a rule. When I have the urge to go on the treadmill, instead of going outside, I have to ask myself, is it because I think the outdoors will ruin the quality of the workout? Or is it because I think the outdoors will be unpleasant? And if I can answer the former, then I go on the treadmill. But if the answer is the latter,
Hmm.
I can use that day to improve my mental toughness and go outside.
Hmm.
Yes. Totally
That's a good
agree.
rule. That's a
Yeah.
really good rule. Yeah, I would say, and since you guys are in some serious weather, some serious cold, frigid winters, of course, the treadmill is an amazing tool because sometimes you just need to use it. I mean, that's the way you're going to train. If you're not going to train or you have to train on a treadmill, of course you want to train on the treadmill. Also, it can be a nice tool if you have a really, really specific workout and you don't have a really great place to run it in, like a long threshold workout, like the workout you did, Alex, with your video, where you need to have a very specific pace and you don't want to be adjusting and looking at your watch every few minutes to make sure that you're still on that pace or you don't have a great place to, okay, yeah, it can be a very, very useful tool. However, I feel like if you're going to be doing outdoor racing, that outdoor running is generally going to be more beneficial, right? Because you need to be able to face the elements. You know, there might be wind on race day, there might be uneven terrain. You need to get used to it. Running on a treadmill does feel different. I don't know about you guys, but my rate of perceived exertion, actually running on a treadmill is a million times harder for me. And I have
Yeah.
athletes say the opposite, but I feel like I'm flying. And I'm like, all
Yeah.
right, I'm going at 6.
Yeah. It feels more stressful to run a treadmill. I think in part because you kind of know that the thing is just going to keep moving and keep dragging you through that pace, which creates a bit of anxiety. But then
Mm,
I also feel like it's easier to run really fast on a treadmill because it's just like, well, that's the pace I'm running at. So I've got to match this pace versus sort of like forcing yourself to actually get to that pace.
mhm,
So I agree with both of you. I think that if it's a key workout and conditions are not ideal out there and they're going to compromise your workout and you want that workout to just tell you something specific about where you're at in your fitness, for example, do it on the treadmill if you've got access to one. But otherwise, enjoy the great outdoors.
face the elements.
Indeed, indeed. And rate of perceived exertion too, right? Like if you're not hitting your numbers, but there are some pretty adverse conditions out there, that's cool. It's okay. Just like we don't have to like doesn't we're not going for perfect scores here, right? Your body doesn't know the difference between, X mile pace and Y mile pace. All it knows is the feeling, and you're getting that adaptation. So trust in the training. Okay, next one. How can I improve shuffling my feet while running?
Oh,
Oh, we got a foot shuffler.
Okay. So, hello, dear foot shuffler. I used to be you. I was a big shuffler in college. I was called out on it by my teammates and coaches. I don't shuffle as much now. It's good that I don't because when you shuffle, you're kind of stopping yourself. I saw some footage of me running or like years ago, and shuffling is like every time you land, you're kind of braking. When you hear
Yep.
the
Mhm.
when you land, it's like, okay, well you're taking speed away. You should be landing firm on your foot. I worked with a coach about 5 or 6 years ago, a strength coach, who his take was that I needed to strengthen my calf muscles, so my gastrocnemius and soleus muscles, because they weren't doing much work when my feet hit the ground.
You had
Which
lazy calves.
I had lazy calves. I had lazy calves, and so I did these two gym exercises. And I'm not saying it's just that. There's something that happens the more you run that your body just becomes better at running, and the shuffling might go away a little bit. Although if you're a shuffler, sometimes even if you get faster, it's hard to let go of. So I did these two, and I still do them, two gym exercises, and they're two variations of calf raises. So one of them is just a standing calf raise. I get on one foot and I go on my tiptoes, control my way up, and then control my way down. I do 25 per leg. I think I started doing 10 per leg. If you do it well, you should feel it in your big calf muscle. That's the first variation. The second one is a two-legged calf raise, but you're squatting. And you
Mm,
never
mhm,
get out of your squat. So like you
Right.
get in squat position
mhm.
and then you get on your tiptoes and back down. Same thing. Do
Hmm.
it about 10, 15 times.
Never done
And
that
those
one
two
before.
exercises both work different parts of your calf and then make your lower leg stronger. That was one take, seemed to help me. Running over the years also helped me. So don't give up and don't accept the shuffle. Some people will be like, if you shuffle, you shuffle. It is what it is. And I do agree that like there are some things about your running stride that you'll never change and that are just you, but I don't think shuffling is necessarily one of them, especially if you're someone who breaks hard when you're hitting the ground.
Yeah, I think there are a couple ways that you can also, while you're running, if you feel like you kind of are falling into shuffling, maybe throw a few strides into your run, like to get
Good
your,
call. Yeah.
yeah, right, to really start getting your feet moving, get that cadence nice and quick. That might help. And perhaps before even going out there, I mean, if you're going to do it, speaking of the famous warm up, if you're going to do some warming up, you can add some of those drills in, like high knees, A skips, butt kicks, a little bounding, that kind of stuff that will just have you naturally practicing getting your feet off of the ground, of course, in a more exaggerated fashion. But that means if you do those exaggerated drills, once you get to running, maybe you won't be shuffling as much. So just a couple of other tips for pre and during that you can kind of throw into your runs.
All right, guys. Here's a highly subjective one, and I just want to hear what you each do. How often should I take gels during a race, and which ones? How should I carry them during a race? I'll leave you each to decipher what the details of that question, but that's a broad question. But I am curious overall, like, what's your approach to gels, Mr. Sear?
Oh, I'm disqualifying myself. I've never taken a gel.
There you go.
I haven't run a marathon.
Wow.
The half marathon is the middle point for people. Some half marathoners take a gel and others don't. I have not done so. And because my first half marathon went well and I had no gels. And so I decided to just be a no gel half marathon guy. Now, not to flex my muscles, but also this is important to say, I run it in an hour and 5.
Right.
If you run a half marathon in 2 hours, you'll probably need a gel because you're running for a bit longer.
Yeah.
And so that's it. Caitlin, this is you, man.
Yeah.
What do you do?
That's a really important point, right? And I'm really glad that you brought that up, because then other people say, oh, half marathon, I don't need to fuel. Yes, but if you run it in an hour,
depends.
You have permission. You have permission not to fuel.
And some people who run around my speed do take gels. It's like split down the middle. So there's a bit of variability there.
Yeah. So okay, first off, the number of gels that you need to take is going to depend on your needs. So there's a bunch of different ways to calculate that. Usually the rough estimate is, that your weight in kilos is the number of grams that you should take per hour. If it's something like a marathon, I follow that for my ultras. I follow that for a marathon. So say I'm taking like 50, I almost said it in Spanish, 50 grams of carbs an hour.
Okay. Easy.
That
look at her go.
That happens every once in a while because I explain so much of this in Spanish. So if I'm taking 50 grams of carbs an hour, I estimate, okay, that's about 2 gels an hour. So I need 2 gels an hour to feel really good. I practice it a lot in my long runs. So that's what I take. Some people might need a little bit less and they might need a little bit more. And that's why we always go back to rule number 1, which is practice everything in the long run. So you figure out for whatever your race is going to be, what amount of fuel you feel is necessary to run at your absolute best. So I take about 2 gels per hour, which is about between 45, 50, 60 grams of carbs per hour, depending on the gel. A lot of people ask me what gels to take. That's a really big laundry list that we could go through because now the Morton gels are really popular. I take power gels. I take the green apple power gels, which have caffeine in them. But if you take a look at the nutrition facts on most of them, they're going to be around that 25, 30 grams of carbs per gel.
They're all kind of the same.
They're all kind of the same, right?
Yeah.
Carrying them, fuel belt. That's when I'm running in the trails, obviously we use a vest. And so I have a ton, when it's ultra marathons, we have a ton of space. So of course I put the gels in my vest, but obviously people who are asking are running a marathon, right? Road stuff. And so I use one of those flip belts. It's a belt that is, nice and taut against your waist, I guess. So you don't have to worry about it bouncing or moving around because you don't have to carry fluid. Most people, I guess, use the aid stations in a marathon, so aren't carrying a lot of liquids. And some people do, I'm sure. But if you just want to worry about gels, I would try one of those flip belts. That's what I'm going to use in Boston.
Weird places I've heard of people carrying gels under the hat, in the socks, in the running shorts.
Yep.
Yeah, running shorts have lots of pockets. If you get
No,
oh no, just
Oh, in the
oh.
banana hammock.
in the banana hammock. In the banana hammock.
Warming them
Okay.
up. Okay.
I'd be worried about some
All
chafing.
right. Sure. That's a little weird.
My
Yeah.
running partner has a little trick actually. Sorry. He's gonna use them. He's gonna wear arm sleeves, and he's put them
Oh.
in the arm sleeves
Yeah.
before. And so he said
That's good.
Pro
he's
move.
gonna do that for Boston. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good move. Right?
Especially if things warm up and the sleeves come off. You know, you can take the gels, then take the sleeves off afterwards, right?
Mhm.
Kind of like a little go through a little checklist of things that you're going to do throughout the race. That's not a bad idea. I've seen people like safety pin gels to their shorts. Kind of a little weird because they're sort of like running along and the gels are slapping away on their hips. But yeah. Maybe go in the hunt for a nice pair of shorts that have a lot of different little pockets that hold the gels pretty tightly to your body so that they don't flap around. Conversely, you can just, if you're into experimenting and you're not too fussy and you know what race you're going to run at the very beginning of your season, you can just find out what the official nutrition partner is of the race, especially if it's a big marathon, you'll know right away. And you can start training with those gels because they'll be on course, right? And you'll know where they are on course and you can do it that way.
Oh,
or you can be like me and believe it's all just one gigantic conspiracy and not take gels at all. But
you still carry the Eggo waffles with you, right, Michael?
And a toaster and a small generator.
Yes.
It's very complicated. I like to butter them as well.
Yeah.
No, I shove a couple of Morton gels in a little back pocket of a pair of like half tight shorts or split shorts, and that's what I bring with me. Okay, so next up, here we go, giant opaque question that immediately disqualifies Alex Sear.
Again?
What should my pacing strategy be for the marathon?
Oh, geez.
What should I do with my life? What is the meaning of life? Why are we here? And oh, by the way, should my pacing strategy be? No, I think there's actually one answer to all of this. And I think the answer is, it depends. No, the answer is if the marathon is relatively flat or relatively evenly structured and not super duper hilly, like the Boston Marathon. Like if it's like Chicago, try to run even splits. If you have a goal time in mind, try to run even splits, try to run evenly or slightly negative split. We have a previous podcast where Alex did a whole bunch of research and discovered that there was some very fascinating studies done on successful marathon times, metadata analysis, thousands of marathons run, thousands of marathon times, and a slight negative split is the most successful way to run a marathon. However, it's tough to know how to slightly negative split.
Yeah.
So I think the ideal scenario would be go in with a good idea of what your goal time, what your time might be based on your workouts and your hopefully feedback from a coach or somebody you work with and your training plan. Everything's going accordingly and you've got a goal time in mind. Try to do some even splits that take you up to that. Your halfway split should be half of what your end time is. It's very easy math. And then the second half, like, good luck to you, friend. You know, it's like, it gets hard at about 32 kilometers.
Oh,
but
boy.
If you've done it right, you should be okay.
That's it. I think that was the rationale behind the study is like, why was the highest success rate not from a perfectly even split? It was because if people split perfectly evenly, by the time they got to kilometer 40 or mile 25, they had more in the tank. And so they ran 10 seconds faster in the last mile and they finished completely spent, equaling a slight negative split. But yeah, agreed. Much better to go into a race hoping for an even split than trying to like calculate how you can negative split the thing. It's easier on the head.
That makes sense, Caitlin?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I agree with you guys 100%. That's, I mean, much easier said than done, right? Most of us are positive splitting, splitting races. However, the ideal, I am absolutely in agreement, except unless it's Boston or some strange different course, which I cannot wait to hear what Amby had to say. I'm going to follow exactly what he says. He's the expert in Boston.
I'd
Stay
also
tuned.
guess, and I don't want to throw in too much marathon advice as a not a marathoner, but I think this applies to all races. Aiming for even splits on a hard course may actually sabotage you. And I've been there before when you're like, I want to break 30 for 10. I need to get to 5K at 15 or whatever it is. And then you're not considering that the first half of the course is a lot easier than the second half or vice versa. So I feel like as soon as you have a course that's hilly, you almost have to ditch this like time focused, even split goal.
Yep.
Or in like something like a 10K, which is a more pressure-filled, more physiologically stressful experience, not listening to your body and like forcing yourself through, say you're trying to run a sub 40-minute 10K, just for ease of math here. You force yourself through like 1950 in the first half and it just doesn't feel good and it's not coming. The race is not coming to you. Often doing that sets you up for a brutal second half as well, because it doesn't get any easier, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if maybe you gave up a few seconds in the first half, I mean, there's not a lot of room for error in a 10K, but maybe your body will self-regulate. You'll start to gain some confidence and you can run down that sub 40 in the second half, maybe. But that's why we run these races, to experiment, to try to figure this out, to know thyself. All right, we'll take a quick break and then we'll get into shoes. We'll turn to you, Mr. Sear, and get right into your mailbag questions about shoes and gear. Be right back. All right, and we're back. We're reaching into the spring 2025 mailbag, and now we're rummaging around the shoes and gear section. And Mr. Sear is all lathered up and ready to talk.
He's in the hot seat.
We're going to put the pressure on.
It is quite hot here, yes.
Let's put on the heat right away. Josh writes in, and this is in reference to a recent podcast we did where we talked about what we felt the best and most interesting shoes were right now on the market for you, the listener, viewer, and what we run in as well. He says, love the podcast, the newsletter, and the site. Thanks for the free ultra running training plans. Josh, you are welcome. But this episode left me scratching my head. Not one single mention of Puma, the brand that in the last couple of years consistently put out better and more innovative shoes than Brooks and New Balance combined. The Deviate Nitro 2 was probably the best super trainer until the Super Blast 2 came along. Josh. Caitlin, I don't know about you, but I blame Alex for this one.
It's all on him, 100%.
Yeah. I think Puma are great. They're doing interesting things. Deviate Nitro 2 is a great shoe. So Alex, why didn't you bring up why didn't we talk about Puma?
Okay. A couple of reasons. One, personal preference. Two, logistics, because Puma's a good brand. How can you tell that a shoe brand is doing well right now? Is look at the pros. Even if you're not an elite athlete or a sub-elite athlete, look at the pros, because they have access to all shoes in the world. And of course, sponsorships matter, but they'll usually go towards the brands that are making good shoes. And if there's a presence on the elite podiums in the top 10s in the world, it means a brand's doing well. Puma is that right now. They've kind of done better than like some of the brands you would expect to be near the top in the last couple of years. So yes, Puma's doing good stuff. As a shoe reviewer, you try to be as objective as you can, but also you will always factor in your personal feeling about a shoe and a brand. If a brand doesn't really jive with the shape of your feet, it will sometimes factor into your review, because you will try the shoes and they are your takes. I've had a bit of issues warming up to Puma in the past. I think it's the shape of the shoe. I struggle to get a rock forward through them. It's not something that I've heard many other people share. And so I'm kind of wondering if it's an Alex issue. It's not to say that all their shoes aren't working for me. Some of them are. Their super shoe, the Nitro Elite 3, is fast. They're one of the only brands who have managed to make a shoe under 7 ounces, a good shoe under 7 ounces. And so they're off to good things. I think it's a bit on me to put my my difficulty with the rock forward aside and try to be unbiased, but that's a little bit hard to do because, well, I'm the one testing the shoe. So I don't know. Maybe we need an objective Puma tester. Like, Michael, you've had a couple of shoes come in.
Objective Puma tester. I like it. Yep.
You haven't done many Puma tests lately. I know that for a fact.
No, I haven't. And
let me just also add this because I don't want to forget. It's been hard to secure Puma shoes as well. It's been hard to connect with the brand and receive test samples. That's the other part that is important. At the end of the day, that kind of limits us as well. But yes.
A little like sort of like we could just do, business journal segment here, a little palace intrigue. I think Puma is a company that it's a very old company. It's a German company and really interesting history if you want to go down the rabbit hole with that because the two brothers, one made Adidas, the other made Puma. Puma has gone back and forth between trying to be serious about running shoes and not so much over the last several years. And for the longest time, they were making shoes for sprinting. Usain Bolt was their guy. And they weren't terribly serious about distance running shoes. In the last few years, they've been very serious about distance running shoes and invested a lot of money. And I think the timing, unfortunately, was poor in that they put together one of their big launches right at the onset of COVID. And they've recently gone through some pretty big challenges with, I believe their CEO was either fired or stepped down. So they've had like a change in leadership as well. And I quite frankly think they're struggling a little bit to connect and to sell shoes. So I think Josh is either works for Puma and is doing good work here, or he's making a good point here, which is like, they're a good brand. I've discovered a brand that's making really good shoes right now. Why aren't we giving them more love? And you're making a great point, Josh. Like, why aren't we giving them more love? We will give them more love. And they're doing cool stuff. I know, Alex, we've been talking offline about this. They're doing some neat stuff in Boston that we're going to check out. So we'll probably have more Puma coverage coming up in the near future. And Josh, we'll do better. We'll make a better effort for Puma because they deserve it, because they actually are. They're innovating. They're making good stuff. They're making good everyday running shoes, and they're also making good racing shoes as well. And they're also investing in athletes, which I think is a really important piece in the puzzle, which is cool. Okay.
They do fit into our top 5 types of shoes in 2024 in a few of our lists.
Did. So that's right. They did.
They are there. They are there. Yeah.
And we just spent 6 minutes talking about Puma. So there you go. Okay.
Shout out to Rudy Dossler.
That's right. So Mary Pagonis 6073. Apologies, Mary, if I butchered what I think is your last name. She writes, self-indulgent question that may be relevant to other people, hopefully. I am a stereotypical Brooks shoe wearer. I would love to know what a stereotypical Brooks shoe wearer is. I'm a neutral runner, fairly small and light, but older, an age grouper who loves the cushioning of the Glycerin 22.
Yes.
Yes, we all do love it.
We all do.
It's like running on a bed. Multiple attempts to try Adidas and Nike, including the Pegasus, haven't worked out for me. Ankle pain. I really don't have a racing or workout shoe. Would a Brooks Hyperion be a good option? Or am I too slow? Absolutely wouldn't be offended if you say I am. I was at a local 5K where the guy who broke the tape was wearing Hyperions and he ran 15 minutes and change. Whoa. But would they help someone like me? So, Mary, what do we tell her?
First of all, thank you for the support, because Mary, I see your name commenting on several of our videos. So I think this is like a continued viewer, subscriber. So
thank you, Mary. Yeah.
And we looked at the comments to pick some questions. I picked this question personally because I found like a bit of a misconception inside of the question that I think is somewhat important to talk about. The idea that you might be too slow to wear super shoes. I don't think that's founded in anything. I think that's a myth. I think that's something that maybe people tell themselves, this is for the elites and I should be wearing what was she wearing? The Glycerins or the Brooks Ghosts, for example.
Sure.
There was this massive study from a few years ago published in the New York Times, I think by the New York Times, that showed that different people responded to super shoes differently. That's 100% true. It's not that this particular super shoe will make everyone 5% faster, for example, but it wasn't necessarily speed that decided whether or not you responded to super shoes. In fact, there was some evidence that showed that slower runners responded even more to super shoes than fast runners. The theory behind that, or a theory behind that, is that the faster runners had less to clean up with their strides. Super shoes could only do so much because their strides were already quite good, whereas slower runners had a lot more to work on. So I think super shoes are good for the majority of people. Now, you, Mary, and all of us will try different super shoes and dislike some and like others. Kind of like we were just saying about Puma. Sometimes I'll wear a Puma and it just doesn't really agree with my foot. And for whatever reason, I love the Adidas Adios Pro 4. One of you might find it to be the complete opposite. It is subjective. But yes, try the Hyperion. But also, if Adidas and Nike doesn't work for you, try New Balance. Try the Puma. There you go. And see which one you like. But don't look at a shoe and think this one's too fast for me for a race. Of course, don't train in your super shoe. But if you want to race in it, go ahead. I don't think there's a speed limit for it on either side.
I actually do train in that exact shoe. So in the Hyperion.
Yes.
The Hyperion Elite. I like it as a training shoe, and I would run, I think, shorter distances in it. I think it's a great shoe. I absolutely run in it. I think it's a great question. And I think there's like the placebo effect is real, right? And if you like to race, if you like to, enter marathons, half marathons, 5Ks, 10Ks, and you like that whole process of like getting ready for an event and challenging yourself on race day, like buying a pair of super shoes is kind of part of the whole performance that is racing, right? It will make you feel like you're doing something special and important and challenging. And it's like, it's part of the uniform. Just like if you would wear a particular outfit for a particular job, think of the super shoe as like your steel toe boots, your hard hat, you're going to work, that sort of thing. So absolutely. I think everybody should wear super shoes as long as you feel fast in them. Yeah. If you feel fast in them, they're for you. Okay, we've got a question here about another specific shoe, so I'll sort of put it into context. We've talked a lot about Adidas's lineup recently, and Adidas came out with obviously arguably the fastest, most advanced shoe in the world, the Adios Pro Evo, which is also the most expensive super shoe in the world as well. And they've recently come out with like a trainer or a super trainer called the Evo SL. It looks very similar to the Pro Evo, but it's kind of like the baby Evo. And we got a bunch of questions after you did some content around these shoes, Alex, about what the Evo SL was like. Is it more durable than its big sibling, the Evo? And is it almost as fast? I'll let you take it from there.
I think that the Evo SL benefits from the fanfare of the Pro Evo because I think on its face, it's not that special of a shoe. It's certainly not as fast. I wore it. It looks the same, but it's not made with the same materials, essentially.
No.
It's heavier. It's not as responsive. And that's not saying much because nothing is as light and responsive as the Pro Evo in the world. But the SL is certainly a notch down. What it gains is durability. The Pro Evo is not a durable shoe. I've tested it for myself. I think I wore mine out. The SLs now are not made to only last you one race or 50 kilometers. They are a workout shoe. That's what they are. You could paint them purple and then they would be an Asics Nova Blast. That's how they feel. They're in that category of workout shoes that are not huge or like thickly carbon plated. They're more lightweight and they're kind of like your workout shoes of the past of maybe 10 years. Light, they feel good, they look good. It's a fine shoe, but it's not special like the Pro Evo. I'd say it feels like a Nova Blast. It might feel a bit also like a New Balance Rebel. Like if you're trying to compare with the shoe that you have in your quiver, it's that type of feeling. These days, also, maybe if you've tried the new Nike Pegasus Plus, I'd say that's also kind of in the wheelhouse, just light and fast. But yeah, there's nothing still like the actual Evo.
Alex, I have a question for you. Are you blaming the shoes as to why I beat you in that Wahoo 400-meter race? Saying that
Yes.
they're not that
Yes. They were nothing special.
they were
Caitlin
too slow.
Walton. What were you wearing? What were your
Vapor
shoes?
flies.
See, that's it. That's the thing. Actually, I made
It
a whole
must have been the
reel.
shoes.
I made a whole reel about how the Pro Evos had busted up and lost their power by the time I ran a 10K. And as I looked at the reel again, it really seemed like I was blaming the shoes for the fact that I didn't race that well. So, I mean, listen, believe what you want to believe.
I'm teasing. Of course, Alex beat me in the 400 meters, but I'll be
I'm not
honest
sure I
about
did.
it. No.
I'll have to review the footage.
Well, yes, there is footage. There's plenty of footage. We could check it out.
Okay, guys, let's pivot into the potpourri section.
Oh, here we go.
Hafiz Nazri 4519 asks the simple yet opaque question of what are speed goggles? And we discovered in prepping for the show, Caitlin Tossi had no idea what speed goggles were
I
either.
had no idea. No, I did not. So I'm on your side.
And I'm also going to throw Mr. Sear under the bus and allow him to explain what speed goggles are.
Because he had a very clear definition of speed goggles. Go
You can
for it, Al.
Yeah, explain what speed goggles are without getting canceled. Go.
Okay. Ooh, let's go. Okay. So when you find someone more attractive because they run fast, you have speed goggles for this person.
Yes, that is
That's
my
it.
understanding as well.
That's it.
Well
It's
done.
Why I had so many girlfriends in college.
Oh wow!
Because you're
What a
fast.
weird,
Okay,
what a
okay.
weird flex that is. But also,
That's a
like
joke.
you're self-deprecating at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So if I
Yes.
need to compare this to something not running, I guess we could say this is comparative to dance goggles. So if you meet someone who
Oh, yeah.
dances dances amazingly, you're like, oh yeah, I definitely want to dance with this person. So dance goggles, speed goggles, what other kind of goggles? I think there's a rabbit hole we shouldn't go down.
No, but like dance goggle, that's a good one. But dance goggles, I think, are universal. Like we're attracted to people who can dance well. Speed goggles are weirder, and I
Only
think
for runners.
only for runners. Yeah, yeah. Not everyone will find you attractive if you can run fast. It's probably
I'm
better to be
recalling-
a good dancer.
One of the singular great pieces of advice my mother gave me as a child was, Michael, learn how to be a good dancer. And it will
Yes.
do things for you in life.
Smart
And
woman.
she is right. There we
And
go.
did you learn?
Oh, I learned, Alex. I learned.
I think we need to have a dance off in Boston
Oh,
between
this
Alex
just got
and
super
Michael.
weird.
This live
Dance
event,
off.
that we're hosting, is this where
Oh,
the
Oh,
Dance
just like at
off.
the end, the lights will dim and
Yeah.
then like the disco
Michael's gonna
ball will
dance.
start spinning.
We can put on
And then you'll
flash
hear-
dance.
Oh, yeah. I was about
Yeah.
to say, like, Time of My Life or whatever. We could
Oh.
play from Dirty
Dirty
Dancing.
Dancing.
There we
Mhm.
go.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll end it at that. No, let's go to the next question. Any advice for sunscreen on race day? I'm running the Honolulu Marathon in December of 2025. I'm a bit worried about getting sunburnt. Yeah, this is from, I believe, from Adam Chang. We got this a little while ago in one of, I think it was one of the YouTube comments. Super valid question. A tricky one, because we all know what happens when you slather sunscreen on above your eyes and then go for a sweaty, hot run. Is it just pours into them, and it's an awful experience. Caitlin, you live in the land of eternal sunshine.
Yes, I
What
do.
the heck do you do?
Okay, well, actually, to avoid that issue, what I do is well, the sunscreen that I do use that doesn't really melt off as easily is the Eucerin sunscreen. I use
Okay,
that on
don't
my
know that.
face, and it doesn't. I hope I'm pronouncing. Yeah, well, hoping I'm pronouncing it correctly. That's the one that I use. It has the orange top. It's a face sunscreen, and it doesn't really sweat off as easily as others do. Now, if you have the problem that the sunscreen sweats off and gets into your eyes, what I suggest is you wear a visor or a hat for that.
Yeah.
For your forehead. I mean, that's the best thing you can do to keep the sun out of your forehead. And then what you can do is you can have the sunscreen on everything below your eyes, right? To make sure that, you know, if you sweat and it's going to come off a little bit, at least it's not sweating into your eyes. So cap or visor for the forehead, and then a nice sunscreen that won't fade away with a little sweat after just, you know, 20 minutes of running.
Yeah, I'd say that's a good call. I like to wear a hat in every race. I'm a hat guy.
Same.
And because I sweat profusely and I just hate that
Me
feeling
too.
of all the sweat just coming into and it sort of makes me panic. So yeah, I do the sunscreen below the eyes, and especially if it's hot sunny day, I'm wearing sunglasses, and then I'm wearing a ball cap to keep the sun off my forehead. And I just hope I don't sweat so profusely that the sunscreen just melts completely off me. Good tip though. Eucerin. We'll maybe we'll put a link. I feel like let's do some free advertising here. EUCRIN. That's the brand that you like, or the type that you like?
EUCRIN.
Okay, great. This one is from our Milestones podcast we did a couple of episodes ago, where we kind of debated which was the greatest milestone in running. And this person writes, I saw my first BQ time tattoo in the wild on Friday. So that must be a big one for some.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Love it.
Yeah. I doubt anyone has their sub 2 hour marathon time tattooed on their body. So
Not yet.
not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. I think the first person to do it in a legitimate way should get it tattooed.
Oh,
yeah.
Absolutely.
I think if Jacob Kiplimo crushes the sub 2 hour marathon in London in like 3 weeks time, we should have our teammate and colleague, Jesse Carveth, who will be there covering it live, approach him and offer that Marathon Handbook will pay for his sub 2 hour marathon tattoo.
It's a great
I
idea.
think that seems like a good idea, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure he'll take us up on that.
I'm sure he
Why
will.
not?
I like it.
BQ time tattoo. I don't know if I've ever seen a BQ time. I think I've definitely seen the Boston Marathon symbol tattooed on a calf or two in my day. Absolutely.
Like the Iron Man, the Iron Man one. That's a big one. I see a lot of those here.
You
Yeah.
You don't have the tattoo. Did you do the Iron Man? I mean, really, right? You know?
But do you mean that you've seen people with Spike tattooed on them?
Like
Spike the unicorn. Yes, I've seen.
Oh,
I've in fact seen the Iron Man tattoo on one calf and Spike the unicorn on the other calf. Like it's like that's like the pairing.
To people who don't know, to people who don't know endurance sports, that must look so weird. It's just like
the weirdest thing ever.
And then
a unicorn and a big
red letters.
Yeah.
It's like the Timex watch icon on one calf. That's so strange. Yeah. We've got a comment here, not a question, from ML Hunt, who just simply says, Godspeed You Black Emperor is a great band. And if you're a real stan of the pod, you know exactly what they're talking about. My all-time favorite band, I think I'm accepting in my middle age. I agree with you, ML Hunt. They are a great band. And if you don't know Godspeed, Google them and listen to them and you'll be blown away. Great running music. Okay, here we go.
I'm glad that we found Michael's burner account. Because what are the first and last letters of Michael? ML.
Yes.
Yeah. Cool.
It's one of my many harder. Pseudonyms.
Try harder next time.
Okay. This one is not from my burner account. This is Adrian Zeg writes, I listen to so many running podcasts and yours is by far my favorite. I joined in December and I listened back to every episode while waiting for the new ones. Appreciate the balance between casual running tips and getting to learn about hot news stories and in the running world.
Cool.
Adrian, thank you so much. And if you, we'll reward good behavior here. If you put nice, positive comments like that, we'll definitely read them out in our mailbag episodes.
Give you a shout out.
You can send your questions, thoughts, comments to hi@marathonhandbook.com. You can comment on YouTube. You can comment on our Spotify allows comments now as well. Obviously on our social channels. And we'll make sure we collect those comments and questions, and we'll do a mailbag in a couple of months' time and get to your questions. Okay, guys.
Awesome.
So, programming notes. We are going to do next week. We'll have a full-on Boston Marathon preview episode. We're just going to unpack like a little bit of the history of the race. We'll talk a little bit about the course. Talk about perhaps smart ways to run the course. All sorts of different little tidbits about the Boston Marathon. And then we're going to be in Boston for I feel like three of us are like moving there. It's like we're going to be there for like the better part of a week. Yep. And we'll be doing a ton of live Boston coverage throughout. We'll call it Boston Marathon Week. Really kind of starting on Thursday. We'll kick things off on Thursday, and then we'll go all the way through until the following Tuesday, the day after the race, giving you every single angle of what it's like to experience the Boston Marathon. And we'll be doing our live show the Saturday night. As we mentioned off the top, there are like a scant few tickets available. Check out the show notes for a link for the RSVP. Got to RSVP in order to get in. There's only a couple of seats left, and we're going to have all kinds of fun surprises for you at that show. And also, we'll be doing I think we'll do a live instant reaction podcast right after Boston. And then the following week, we're going to roll right into London. So it's the crazy time of year. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, guys, until next week, we'll be talking all about Boston next week.
Can't wait.
Bye.